Check this out. BCM Raider here, bringing you another Commander Deck Tech. Today we're looking at Zacama, Primal Calamity. But this isn't your traditional Zacama build. This isn't big dinosaurs and stuff. This is specifically a landfall deck. So we're going to benefit from playing as many lands as possible from our hand, lands entering the battlefield that are going to trigger a whole bunch of fun stuff, and being able to play lands from our graveyard and just doing fun, broken landfall things. So let's get right into it. Okay, first up are all the landfall creatures. Every single one of these creatures is going to benefit from lands entering the battlefield. So we have Lotus Cobra. This will produce 1 mana of any color we want. Now we have Scoot Swarm. This is going to be fun because in the early game, we're going to create these 1/1 green insect tokens. However, if we have 6 or more lands, those tokens are going to become exact copies of Scoot Swarm. So we're going to have many Scoot Swarms. Now we have Nissa, Resurgent Animist. This is going to be fun because whenever a land enters the battlefield, we're going to add 1 mana of any color. But if this is the second time this ability has resolved, we get to reveal cards from the top of our library until we reveal an elf or elemental card and put that into our hand. Now we have Tireless Tracker. I love this card. Whenever a land enters, we're going to get a clue token. And whenever we sacrifice the clue to draw a card, we're going to put a +1 counter on Tireless Tracker. Similar to that, we have Tireless Provisioner. But instead of a clue token, we're going to get a food or treasure. Our choice. Now we have some bigger landfall creatures, like Omnath, Locus of Rage. So if you have Nissa, you can reveal cards until you hit Omnath. But whenever a land enters the battlefield, he's going to make 5/5 red and green elemental creature tokens. But if those 5/5 elementals or another elemental creature goes to the graveyard, we get to deal 3 damage to any target. Now we have Morog, Fury of Akum. This is going to be very powerful because whenever a land enters the battlefield, if it's during our main phase, we're going to get a additional combat phase, and those creatures are going to untap. But each creature is going to get +1/+0 each time that creature attacked that turn. And that seems really good. Now we have Nesting Dragon. He's going to provide a lot of different tokens for us. First, he's going to create a 0/2 dragon with Defender. And when that token goes to the graveyard, we get a 2/2 red dragon token with Flying and Fire Breathing. Now we have Admonition Angel. This is basically a Oblivion Ring on a landfall creature. Whenever a land enters the battlefield, we get to exile a non-land permanent other than Admonition Angel. It'll stay exiled until that leaves the battlefield. Now we have Greensleeves, Morrow's Sorcerer. This is really fun. Besides having protection from planeswalkers and wizards, which is kind of strange, but her power and toughness are going to be equal to the number of lands we control. And whenever a land enters the battlefield, we're going to make 3/3 Badger tokens. And who doesn't love Badgers? Now we have Rampaging Balos. The tokens Rampaging Balos is going to make are 4/4 green beast tokens. So they're slightly bigger than Badgers. Now we have the iconic Avenger of Zendikar. This is going to be fun because when Avenger enters the battlefield, we're going to make a whole bunch of 0/1 green plant tokens equal to the number of lands we control. But whenever a land enters the battlefield, we're going to put a +1 counter on each plant creature we control. Okay, now we got some creatures that will allow us to play multiple lands each turn. So we have Oracle of Moldiah. We play with the top card revealed, but we can play lands from the top of our library. Now we have Azusa, Lost But Seeking. She's going to allow us to play 2 additional lands. Now we have Dryad of the Elysian Grove. She's going to be very helpful because every single land we control will tap for any color we want. Now we have Mina and Den Wildborn. She's going to be really fun because we can activate her and return a land back to our hand. That way we can replay it. But by doing that, we're going to give whatever creature we want trample. Now we have Wayward Swordtooth. This is going to be fun because it's a very low costing creature, but it can't attack or block unless we have the City's Blessing or control 10 or more permanents. But he's a really good blocker. Well, seeing how we're going to have a lot of mana, might as well do some very big, powerful, splashy things. So we have Xenagos, God of Revels. This is a 5-drop, 6/5 indestructible god, but it's not a creature unless our devotion is less than 7. But at the beginning of combat, another target creature will get +X, and haste, where X is that creature's power. Okay, now we have Elesh Norn, Mother of Machines. This is really powerful because Landfall is a triggered ability. So whenever a permanent entering the battlefield is going to trigger on our side, it's going to trigger twice. And our opponent's permanents are not going to trigger at all. Now we have a Tali, Primal Conqueror. This is a very scary creature. Just when a Tali enters the battlefield, every single player is going to exile cards until they exile a non-land card, and you get to cast all the non-land cards without paying their mana cost. And if we have 10 mana or 9 colorless mana and 2 life, we can transform this. And it transforms into a Tali Primal Sickness. This is basically a Blightsteel Colossus. And of course, we have Daddy. We have Ulamog, the Ceaseless Hunger. This card is absolutely insane. Just when you cast this card, you get to exile 2 permanents. That's insane. It's indestructible, but whenever Ulamog attacks, you're going to exile 20 of their cards. That's nuts. Okay, now we have some creatures that are going to synergize with all these lands. So we have Courser of Krufix. Similar to Oracle of Moldiah, we can play the top card of our library if it's a land, but we're going to gain life every time a land enters the battlefield. Now we have Raminep Excavator. He's going to allow us to play lands from our graveyard. Now we have Feybarrow Elder. This is a very efficient 3-drop creature. Apart from having Vigilance, it's going to get +1/+1 for each color among permanents we control. But he's going to add mana equal to all those colors. Now we have Living Twister. Living Twister is going to be really fun because we can pay 1 green, return a tapped land we control back to our hand. That way we can play it again. But also, if we pay a colorless and a red, we can discard a land to deal 2 damage to any target. Now we have Titania. Titania is very good because just when she enters the battlefield, she's going to return a land from our graveyard to the battlefield. And then whenever a land is put into a graveyard from anywhere, Okay, now we have a very powerful one with Titania, Protector of Argoth. Just when Titania enters the battlefield, she's going to return a land from her graveyard to the battlefield. And then whenever a land is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, such as a fetch land, we're going to create a 5/3 elemental token. Now we have a Shaya, Soul of the Wild. This one is going to be very large because we're going to have a lot of lands. But non-token creatures are going to be forest lands in addition to our other types. So what that means is any creature entering the battlefield is going to enter as a land creature, which will trigger landfall. Now we have Multani, Yavamaya's avatar. This is going to be another large creature too, equal to the number of lands we control and the lands in our graveyard. But we can pay 2 and return 2 lands back to our hand to return Multani from our graveyard back to our hand. So we can keep getting this back and 2 lands just by paying 2 mana. Now we have Ancient Green Warden. This one's really cool. Similar to Alesh Norn, he's gonna allow our permanents to trigger again, but similar to Raminap Excavator, we can play lands from our graveyard as well. And it's a 5/7 with reach, so it can block all those pesky flyers. Now we have Nyx Bloom Agent. Apart from just having a lot of lands, why not have all those lands tapped for as much mana as possible? And it's a 5/5 with trample, so that seems pretty good. Okay, now we have 3 very specific creatures. We have Marisi, Breaker of the Coil. It's a 5/4, but your opponents can't cast spells during combat. So we have a little protection from that. But also, whenever any creature we control deals combat damage to a player, we're going to goad each creature that player controls. Now we have Perforos, God of the Forge. Because we're going to be creating a lot of like tokens and stuff, especially with Scoot Swarm. Whenever another creature enters the battlefield, we get to deal 2 damage to each opponent. But if we created a very large board, we can just pay 3, and then all of our creatures get +1/+0 until the end of turn. Okay, now we have a very specific one. We have Tamir Sabertooth. We're going to use this to protect our other creatures, but if we control 12 lands, it's an infinite combo with Zacama. So we're going to float 12 mana. We're going to use 9 of it to recast Zacama. It'll untap all our lands. So we have 3 mana left over. We're going to use 2 more to return Zacama back to our hand. So we're going to net 1 color every single time we do this. So we could deal infinite damage, destroy every single artifact and enchantment we want, or we can gain infinite life. Okay, that was all the creatures. Let's get into the enchantments. Of course, we're playing Burgeoning. That way we can capitalize on playing lands whenever our opponents play land. Now we have Splunking. Splunking is only really here to ensure that every single land that enters the battlefield enters untapped. Now we have Exploration for even more additional land drops. Mirari's Wake. That way we can make all our creatures bigger, but more importantly, every single land will tap for additional mana. Now we have Wilderness Reclamation. What's really fun about this card is at the beginning of every single end step, you can put this trigger on the stack, and float as much mana as you want, and then those lands are going to untap. So if you have Zacama out, you can continually use that mana every single turn. Now we have Impact Tremors. Similar to Perforos, this is going to deal 1 damage every single time a creature enters the battlefield. And because we're making lots of tokens, I figured why not throw around as much damage as possible. Now we have Felidar Retreat. That way we can start making 2/2 Cat Beast tokens or put +1 counters on all of our creatures. And they're going to gain Vigilance until the end of turn. Now we have Tribute to the World Tree. This one's going to be very fun. Either the creatures entering the battlefield will get bigger if their power is less than 3, but if their power is greater than 3, we get to draw a card. And of course, we have Rhythm of the Wild. This is going to ensure that our creature spells can't be countered, and if we really need it to, we can either attack with it that turn or make it bigger. Now we got some Planeswalkers. This is a landfall deck, so of course we're playing Wrenn 6. Wrenn 6 is going to allow us to return fetch lands back to our hand, or we can -1 to deal 1 damage if we really need to. But if we get Wrenn 6's ultimate, instants and sorceries are going to have retrace. Basically, we can discard a land card and recast that instant or sorcery. Okay, now we have a really powerful one with Nissa Who Shakes the World, because most of our lands are forests. Each forest is going to add a additional green mana, but we can +1 her to put 3 counters on whatever non-creature land we want. That land will untap. So if we need to use that land for mana, it'll be untapped and it'll be a blocker. If we get to her ultimate, we can search our library for as many forest cards and put them onto the battlefield tapped. But if we have Splunking out, those lands are not going to enter tapped. Now we have Garruk, Primal Hunter. We're just going to keep plussing this guy, making 3/3 beast tokens. But if we have a very large creature, then we can -3 and draw cards equal to the greatest power. And that's going to be fun. But we can -6 him and make 6/6 green worm tokens for each land we control. And that's going to be fun. Okay, we got 4 artifacts. We have Soul Ring, Arcane Signet, Conduit of Worlds. This is going to be fun because Conduit of Worlds will allow us to play lands from our graveyard. But if we activate this, we can target a non-land permanent in our graveyard. And if we haven't cast a spell this turn, we can cast that from our graveyard. But unfortunately, we can't cast anything else after that. And only as a sorcery. Now we have the One Ring. Really don't need to explain too much more about this card. You cast it for 4 mana. You'll gain protection from everything until your next turn. That'll keep you alive. And you will draw a crap ton of cards with this. Okay, let's get into the instants. Of course, we're playing Harrow. But as a additional cost, we have to sacrifice a land. But this synergizes very well with Titania. And then you're going to trigger landfall twice. Okay, now we have Crop Rotation. This is going to trigger Titania as well. But we're going to search our library for any land and put it onto the battlefield. Now we have Return of the Wild Speaker. If we have a very large creature out, we can draw cards equal to its power. But if we have a lot of tokens, we're going to make all those creatures +3/+3. Now we have Constantness. This is going to be fun because this is going to be a fog effect that we can keep bringing back to our hand just by sacrificing a land. Okay, let's get into the sorceries. Most of these are just ramp spells. Of course, we have Nature's Lore. That way we can go get whatever forest card we want. Similar to that, we have 3 visits. Now we have Sky Shroud Claim. This one's a little bit better because it will search for 2 forest cards. That way we get to trigger landfall twice. Now we have Forest Seek. Forest Seek's fun because this will allow you to go get whatever land you want as long as it's not a forest. Now we have Green Sun Zenith. That way we can go get whatever green creature we want. Now we have Awaken the Woods. This is going to put as many Dryad Arbors on the battlefield at one time as you want. Now we have a cool one with Majestic Genesis. This is going to be very, very, very powerful. We're going to reveal the top X cards of our library, where X is the greatest mana value of a commander that we own, either on the battlefield or in the command zone. And then we're going to put any number of permanents from among those we revealed onto the battlefield. But if we just need to go get a bunch of very powerful creatures, we have Finale of Devastation. Okay, let's get into the land base itself. We are running 40 lands. We're running 10 specific fetch lands. So we have Wooded Foothills, Windswept Heath, Arid Mesa, Verdant Catacombs, Misty Rainforest, Flooded Strand, Marsh Flats, Scalding Tarn, and Bloodstained Mire. We're not running Polluted Delta because Polluted Delta doesn't actually grab any land that we're playing in the Naya colors. So we're running Sheltering Landscape in its place. This will specifically search for a mountain, forest, or plains guard, which is the reason we're not playing Polluted Delta. Now we have Prismatic Vista. This is a fetch land for basic lands. Similar to that, we have Fable Passage. Okay, now we have all the lands we're going to go get with these fetch lands. So we have Jetmir's Garden, Stomping Ground, Temple Garden, Sacred Foundry, Lush Portico as your surveil land, Elegant Parlor, and Commercial District. Now we have Cinderglade and Canopy Vista. Now we have a really cool one. We have Yavimaya, Cradle of Growth. This will turn every single land we control into a forest, in addition to its other types. And because we have a lot of creatures that will return lands back to our hand, we are playing the 3 Karoo lands. So we have Boros Garrison, Celestia Sanctuary, and Gruul Turf. Now we have some colorless lands. Of course, we're playing Strip Mine, Ghost Quarter. Ghost Quarter is actually pretty fun because you can target your own land. Now we have Wasteland. And of course, because it's a landfall deck, we are playing Field of the Dead. That way we can just make as many 2/2 black zombies as we want. And because we're going to be drawing lots of cards and we want to keep the cards in our hand, we have Reliquary Tower. Okay. I'm running 2 regular forests and a snow-covered forest. The snow-covered is only here for the Field of the Dead because it has a different name. Now we have 2 mountains and the snow-covered mountain. Now we have one plains and one snow-covered plains. And that was the deck tech for Landfall Zacama Primal Calamity. This is a really fun deck, and I really hope you guys enjoyed my build of Zacama. The deck list will be provided in the link to Moxfield in the comments below. So be sure to like, comment, subscribe, follow me on TikTok, share these videos, and I'll see you guys in the next one.